Hey there. Although I am involved with CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada, the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the participants and do not reflect those of CADAC. And now, cue the music.
This is the Impulsive Thinker Podcast, a show for high-achieving ADHD entrepreneurs. Together, we will inform and educate you about how to improve your self-awareness while developing systems, routines, and habits for conquering the entrepreneurial world. Here is your host, Andre Brisson.
Hey there, it's Andre here with another short for the Impulsive Thinker Podcast, the podcast for the high-achieving ADHD entrepreneur. This episode is brought to you by CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. You can get more information and you can donate at www.caddac.ca. This past week in episode 91, I was talking with Don Barden, and he was telling us his ADHD transformation story with his late diagnosis. That man has a master's degree and a doctorate degree, and he's dyslexic and a resistant or a counteracting fact finder. So this is a gentleman that does not need a lot of information to get moving, get things started. I know there's a lot of misconceptions or beliefs out there in the neurotypical and even the ADHD world that ADHD people can't learn. It's too difficult. I can't focus. There's inattention, a lot of excuses and beliefs that it can't happen. Therefore, no point in trying. And based on his story, my background, and a lot of other ADHD entrepreneurs I've been meeting over the last 15 years is, I met a lot of people with severe ADHD. They all learn. They all have learned to do things. And realistically, you have too. But the question is, what is it? What kind of interest did you have? But anyways, the thing that was key to Don's conversation, which I found was extraordinarily well succinct, was learn how you learn. And once you've learned that and you figured that out, then you just learn new things on how you learn. Like for me, for example, once I got my diagnosis and start realizing the only reason I graduated university and the only reason I was successful in businesses and engineering was at an early age. I can even go back to my grade school time. I learned how to learn at a very young age. And for me, what it was is to sit down, I can read, I can learn from a book and get more information, specific information that I did not understand or know from other people. So I'm just going to go back to university here. My ability to hyperfocus, to get into hyperfocus and study before the final exams was quite stupendous for most people. They could not understand how I could be there for 16, 18 hours, just read, learn, write, redo examples, and redo all the assignments. Now, the thing was differently. I just sat there and read and absorbed information. I knew I could not do that, and I knew it was not happening. And I also knew I can't memorize. So what I would do is I'd read and I'd highlight what I thought was important. I'm pretty sure you're going to think as like there was a lot of highlighting. I used to transpose all that, but then I decided later, how about I just read and highlight what I think is important? Because it's easier for me to go find it later. Hey, that's an important part. Let's get in there and see what that was about. Then I would go over those highlighted parts and determine what was more important or actually truly important, not repetitive. Then I'd actually write them down on a piece of paper, word for word, and everything, the key points that were important and made me help understand the concept and the theory. I didn't realize that was me locking it into my brain. It was another step to go review it again to get it locked in my brain. And I found when I write out things, I remember things way better than I do just reading it and not doing it, or just hearing someone or something to remember it. I have to write it down for me to really stick in my mind. It's just something I realized. And talking to more ADHD entrepreneurs, it sounds like that could be something out there. I have to look into it. But by writing by hand, it goes into your brain way better than typing it or reading it. Something for you to consider. So once I did that, then I took all the assignments I did not do in the term, and I redid it all using my notes, using the textbook as reference, and using the people around me. I had a lot of great people around me to help me move things forward and to learn from and discuss things. Then I would do all those assignments. I would do it until I had them perfect and I understood the concepts and what I did wrong. Then I would go do the practice exams, do them all, do it with the group of people I was studying with. And then the ones that we struggled with, we kept redoing. And until either we figured it out or it was time for the exam. Then I go do the exam. And guess what? Right when I finished the exam, all that knowledge I had was now gone out of my head because I was going to go ready and go do the next one. But the key thing for here is I always tell, and I have a lot of arguments with other engineers about this. I don't need to memorize everything. I just need to understand how things work. And ultimately, I know where all the information is. I can get to it quicker because I understand. I don't need to memorize it. I know where to get it and to figure stuff out from there. So to go off on that, there's another key point that Don had in there. And I think it was very, very key. And I didn't connect this dot until we were talking on that episode. But basically he realized that he learns to understand the knowledge, not just to know it. And to me, the key part was understanding. And then later on that night, that statement kept going over and over in my head. And that was one of the reasons I have a first principles mindset. When I learn, when I need to understand, especially in the engineering world, we understand the first principles. Exactly how does the building blocks all work together? How does it work at the basic level? For example, I'll take concrete. We were allowed a cheat sheet into our concrete exams, concrete design exams. Everyone put down many examples, many problems, similar problems, all the equations, everything that can squeeze onto it. I went in with one sheet with 7 different equations. Those 7 equations were the basic first principles of concrete design. So depending on the situation, on the conditions, or the type of like column, beam, floor that you're going to design, it all came down to these 7 basic equations, and you applied them differently. So me understanding those 7 basic equations, understanding how the whole concept of concrete works, not good intention, but great compression, and then we had steel for the tension, that just changed. Because those conditions, you have to add these equations. Now I'm able to derive anything. That frustrated a lot of people. So I think that's very key. And I've avoided courses that required me to memorize, to remember things. Biology, history, geography, all that information. Now what I know now is I knew I could not memorize, so I stayed away from that. And the stuff that I know and I learned, because I have a great interest, not just because it's engineering, it's if you got a great into this, if you understand the first principles of the concepts that you're learning, you will forever know it, understand it. And the key thing is, because you know this, you can apply it. Because if you can't apply it based on the basic knowledge, all you're going to do is try and remember scenarios. And if you don't have the scenario memorized, or you haven't studied the scenario, you won't be able to apply anything new. And I think us as ADHD entrepreneurs here, I think we learn that subconsciously without realizing it. We've always learned to know things, understand them to the basic first principles, and apply it. That's why we're really great problem solvers. We're able to think on the spot. Why? Because we understand the knowledge. We understand the concept, and we can apply it when it's different. Because we can't memorize, we have to learn the knowledge to the first principles and understand it. And that's a key ingredient, I think, that separates us. Because of that inability to, I'm going to repeat again, because of the inability to memorize, we further go to understand what we're learning. And that makes us more dangerous in the field, and that's what makes us spectacular problem solvers. I thought I'd share those insights. That was a great conversation I had with Don, and I'd like to hear from you. And remember, Don was also dyslexic. I've been talking to a lot of dyslexic ADHD entrepreneurs, and they've all been able to learn and do things differently. And I really hope that this makes sense to you. I would love to hear from you about this concept. Please reach out to me and let me know what you think of this. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Impulsive Thinker Podcast. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion for the show, please visit theimpulsivethinker.com. The Impulsive Thinker Podcast is produced by Tactical Breakthroughs and hosted by Andre Brisson. Remember, ADHD is only a part of you, not all of you.